The year is 1812. Napoleon is getting ready to invade Russia. His army is 600,000 strong, the largest force ever assembled. For weeks, Napoleon reviewed maps, studied Russian defenses, and planned his route. He chose the perfect time to attack. Spring thaw would make travel easier and the Russians wouldn't be prepared for a summer offensive. But one problem remained. The Russians had burned their own capital city, Moscow, before retreating into the countryside. So Napoleon's army would have nothing to plunder, no food to seize, no houses to occupy. Basically, they'd be fighting without any hope of spoils. But Napoleon didn't care. See, he knew this invasion would be different. This time, he was going for something much bigger than loot or land or even life itself. Napoleon was after immortality. He wanted to build an empire so vast and so enduring, it would be spoken about for centuries. And to do that, he needed a new kind of army. An army that fought not just with weapons, but with ideas. An army that marched to the beat of preparation. Now, you might think Napoleon's secret was military genius, and sure, he was skilled on the battlefield. But let's be honest, he wasn't invincible. Take for example, the Battle of Karansebes. On paper it should have been a cakewalk. Napoleon's troops outnumbered the Austrians 2-1, but instead of winning, he nearly lost. What happened? Well, before the fight, Napoleon got drunk and fell asleep. He woke up right as battle began, stumbling around like a sleepwalker as cannons boomed overhead. He barely managed to issue orders in time to pull off a victory. So Napoleon's secret wasn't martial prowess, because even generals get drunk and fall asleep sometimes. No, Napoleon's real strength came from what he figured out about the mind of war. He discovered that battles are actually decided well before the first shot is fired. You see, Napoleon learned that war isn't just about who has the biggest army or the sharpest swords. It's about mastering the art of preparation. It's about being smarter, faster, and more relentless than the enemy. And that, my friends, is pure strategy. And here's the best part. Napoleon's strategies are just as relevant today as they were 200 years ago. Whether you're leading a team at work, trying to break into the dating scene, or simply trying to stay ahead in an ever-changing world, Napoleon's lessons can help us all become strategic thinkers. But let's take things one step at a time. To truly understand the genius of Napoleon, we must first go back to his early days. You see, Napoleon wasn't born a general, he was born a lieutenant. He started his career commanding artillery, basically the guy you call when someone's throwing shade, and that's when he developed his obsession with intelligence. He realized that winning battles wasn't about brute force, but about gathering intel. See, Napoleon wanted to know everything about his enemy, their troop movements, their plans, their strengths, and most importantly, their weaknesses. And he wasn't afraid to get creative to gather intel. Once he sent a young officer named Duroc to spy on the Austrians. Duroc infiltrated their ranks, got cozy as a staff officer, then returned with valuable intel on Austrian defenses. Another time, Napoleon disguised himself as a peasant and snuck into a British camp, observing their maneuvers firsthand. Now, imagine doing that in today's world. It'd be like going undercover as a gardener to spy on the enemy base. But Napoleon's skill wasn't just in gathering intel, it was also about using it. He analyzed every piece of information, cross-referencing details, finding patterns, building a complete picture of his enemy. Then he used that knowledge to exploit their weaknesses. For example, during the Battle of Lodi, Napoleon noticed that the bridge was too narrow for the Austrian troops to deploy properly, so he positioned his artillery pieces to fire directly at the bridge, forcing the Austrians into a narrow choke point where they were easy targets. And this approach worked again and again. At the Battle of Rivoli, he exploited a narrow passage, funneling the Venetian army into a kill zone. At the Battle of Montenotte, he used fog and darkness to conceal his troop movements. Surprising the Piedmontese basically, Napoleon turned every battle into a trap, a carefully crafted plan that funneled his enemies into a place where they couldn't win. So now you're probably thinking, yeah, but times have changed, right? Today's battles aren't as predictable. Well, hold on, because Napoleon's genius wasn't just about one tactic or one battle. It was about a way of thinking, a framework for decision-making that can be applied to almost anything. Let me explain. Fast forward to the modern day. We're no longer fighting with swords and cannons, but ideas and algorithms. And Napoleon's framework can help us navigate this new battlefield. Take, for example, the tech industry. Companies like Google and Apple constantly face competition, both from other tech giants and from startups looking to disrupt the market. Just think about how many streaming services you subscribe to: Netflix, Disney, HBO, Paramount, Peacock, and who knows what else. These companies need to constantly innovate and adapt to stay ahead, and that requires the same kind of preparation and exploitation that Napoleon used on the battlefield. How do they do it? Well, let's look at Netflix. They're not just a movie rental service anymore. They're a content powerhouse producing their own shows and films. They're gathering intel on viewer preferences through algorithms and data analysis. Then they're using that knowledge to produce targeted content. Squid Game wasn't just a random hit. It was the result of careful planning and data-driven decision-making. Likewise, Apple doesn't just release new iPhones every year. They're constantly gathering intel on consumer behavior, technological advancements, and market trends. Then they use that knowledge to develop new features that exploit customer pain points. The iPhone's ecosystem, for example, was designed to make switching to Android difficult, keeping customers locked in. Basically, the tech industry operates on the same principles as war. The goal is to outmaneuver the competition and claim the biggest share of the market. And the best way to do that is to prepare, gather intel, find weaknesses, and exploit them. But what about in our personal lives? Can Napoleon's framework really help us there too? Well, absolutely. Think about dating, for example. The goal is to find someone compatible, someone who complements your lifestyle and values. And the best way to do that is to prepare, to get to know yourself better, to identify your strengths and weaknesses. Then it's about gathering intel on potential partners, learning about their interests, hobbies, and goals. Next comes the preparation. If you notice someone you're interested in, you must act quickly, confidently approach them, engage in conversation. Finally, the exploitation phase. Subtly steer the conversation towards topics that highlight your skills and accomplishments. For instance, if you're a volunteer firefighter, mention the satisfaction you get from helping others while subtly showing off your bravery and quick thinking. It's all about timing, confidence, and knowing how to showcase your best qualities. But remember, it's not just about being strategic. It's also about being genuine. Don't try to be someone you're not. Instead, focus on the best version of your authentic self. In the end, Napoleon's story teaches us that preparation is key to success, whether in war, business, or dating. So study Napoleon, learn his strategies, but don't just copy him. Adapt his lessons to your own unique situation. And always remember, victory starts in the mind. It's not about the size of your army or the strength of your weapons. It's about your preparation, your relentlessness, and your ability to exploit opportunity. So go out there, prepare, gather intel, exploit weaknesses, and don't be afraid to dream big. After all, as Napoleon once said, impossible is nothing. Now check out how ancient Rome created its elite army, or watch this video instead.